I-V-M.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Simplified, a podcast that will make you sound smarter without actually going through the trouble and expense of getting smart, right? So, what's happening in the world now that Donald Trump has, hopefully conceded, not we're recording it, he hasn't, but everyone is basically,
That will be amazing, no? If after we record this podcast, suddenly he springs to power. And everyone will say we jinxed it. So I think we should.
This guy, Fareed Zakaria, had gone into great detail about how Donald Trump can actually get away without conceding. So
Yeah.
That doesn't.
Yeah, everyone needs content, no? So they're like, okay, now that Trump's going away is almost imminent, where do we reach out for content? So till he's gone, we'll keep milking it.
Yeah, you don't have to do actual journalism finding out. You don't think, just both sides have their sort of content ready-made. So the other thing that's big circus that has ended and now everyone's struggling to find news is the IPL, right? So surprise, Mumbai Indians won. And that's now because... Do you think it was a bigger IPL in terms of following this time than it was before?
I think it was at my house for sure because everyone started home.
People like me, I would never be bothered about the IPL. I found myself watching IPL. Yeah. I don't know what it was this time, but
that's also over, and now we need to look at other forms of content to consume.
So there's one teeny little thing that has happened, which we are going to cover in this episode, and that teeny thing is the censorship of OTT platforms. Right?
Hey, do you think the censorship came about because they were called over-the-top platforms? Like, you're way too over the top, man. Like, we need to bring you.
But what would you, if these guys are over the top, what would you call Arnav Band?
Yeah.
So my family watches a lot of these soap operas, like between 8 and 9.
Yeah.
It's a string of soap. So they watch mostly Marathi soap.
Oh, wait, I thought you were referring to news channels. Okay.
Yeah, the news channels come after 9. I think, after 9 is the news channel. But even the soap operas they're far more bizarre than I remember them.
Okay.
So, limits are being stretched. Anyway, this the inconsequential thing that everyone's totally worried about is this OTT censorship. And what actually happened is this. On 11th of November, the Cabinet Secretariat, who's like the biggest bureaucratic office in the country, they issued a notification under what is called the Allocation of Business Rules. And that stated that digital and online media falls within the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting.
Wow.
So earlier, this used to fall under Ministry of Electronics and IT.
Okay.
And Ministry of Electronics and IT didn't have the power to censor. It didn't have censorship powers.
Okay.
And the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting does.
Oh.
It is empowered
What's
under the censor.
So IT and electronics can basically only talk about the tech specs, is it? And
it's not empowered under the Censorship Act. So whatever else it might do, I have no clue what any of the ministries do. So there's they all, there is this. So this whole thing is about power to the bureaucrats.
Oh.
right? So
Right.
I was reading about censorship in general, and the earliest case of censorship was Socrates, earliest known case of censorship.
Was
Like,
Socrates?
yeah, so Socrates said that everyone, like all humans, should find out truth for themselves.
Okay.
That was his central message. He said, go out, think for yourself, and you take your own decisions, things like that. And the Athens government didn't like it. And they said, what nonsense? And then they said, either you recant your thing, or you drink hemlock. He said, I drink hemlock. And he died. And Plato, his
no one
student
there said,
Plato,
if you don't like Socrates, don't watch his channel, is it?
yeah, no one did that, right? That, where was the man at that time? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So no one said that, and Socrates had to,
drink hemlock.
And Plato said, no. And Plato was a student, and Plato got famous by writing down Socrates' thoughts and publishing it.
He was a stenographer.
And he said, yeah, stenographer, but his views were that only people who are of an intellectual caliber high enough to, think should do the thinking. Rest of the people should just march on.
Okay.
So Plato was a guy who was actually pro-censorship.
Yeah, the first bureaucrat.
Yeah, and all our bureaucrats are sincere followers of Plato. They all believe that only they should make the decisions, everyone else should follow.
Yeah, it's like that. No, these industries grow, and at a certain point, they plateau. Okay.
Oh, well played. Yeah. A Chakwadi Pantat. Yeah. So, yeah, that was a digression. Yeah, what we were saying is that these guys have, they've a lot of people commenting on it have said that, hang on, don't panic. All they've said is they've given jurisdiction. They've just taken the jurisdiction from this ministry to the other.
Yeah.
And
just because we have a stick doesn't mean we'll hit you types.
Exactly. Yeah. And people are pointing out that just giving the powers doesn't empower them to do anything. They need to be legislatively sort of armed, right? So somebody has to sit down, draft a law, pass it through parliament. We know how difficult that is in the present. A lot of debate, I'm sure. Yeah, all that thing happens. And then they will be empowered to. And other people, so one thing I found out is a good number of institutions are really bravely battling, for freedom of speech without actually being paid a dime for it. So one of them is something called Software and Freedom Law Center. It's a donor-supported legal services organization that brings together lawyers, policy analysts, technologists, and students to protect freedom in the digital world. So what these people say is that, this is like the thin end of the wedge. It's heavy-handed content regulation framework. And this is exactly what is favored by the government. And the mere fact that there is lack of clarity is that it enables different types of intermediates, and it portends a regime with more interference from the Ministry of I&B and less reliance on self-regulation by the OTT platform. Because before all this happened, they were self-regulating. And actually, the biggest problem in India is nudity and sex. Right? It's well known.
Biggest problem or the biggest purpose?
Yeah, I mean, there are two ways of reproduction, as you and I know. One is, like most Indians, you can just reproduce vegetatively without really doing
flowers kissing.
But the Western people, they actually go and have sex. So we don't want to do that, right? So we wouldn't want to suggest that to our people. So
yeah.
Our system has worked well, and we are the largest sort of population density on the planet.
Yeah, just by flower speaking. But early on, like before, in your youth days, I think there was no censorship, right? Because I do remember like Bollywood movies used to be a little bit more suggestive and racy back in the day.
No, they were heavily censored. They had a sense film or censor board, and there was this famous thing. There was, for some reason, no kissing rule.
Oh, okay.
So the lips would never meet. So you'd have this frame, and the hero and the heroine, the lips would be just like nanometers apart, but they would never actually touch. And then the scene would change.
Yeah.
And despite that, we had a sort of year-on-year, I think 3.1% increase in population rate. So it clearly shows that,
there is a correlation between censorship.
Yeah, completely. Asexual reproduction was happening. But so that's one. But the problem is, they've also, the biggest problem I think with all these nebulous regulations is that they get into the act after something is aired. Like, for example, our podcast. It's innocuous, we think. But maybe I or you said a word which is gravely objectionable, and 6 months later, somebody decides to put us both into it. We can't undo what we said. We mightn't have said it had we known it was objectionable.
Right.
But yeah, somebody is sitting somewhere decides, and that is what people are, wary of. They don't want thought police. They don't want moral police.
Right. But what is the real need for censorship?
Yeah, so it's hard to say, because all over the world, at least on content, there are the censorship law basically is quite specific. So it says you shouldn't have content which is, I'm just paraphrasing, I just read it. You shouldn't have something which is, which threatens the integrity and sovereignty of your country. You don't want that to happen. You don't want incitement to violence.
Right.
You don't want obscenity, public, whatever, decency, offensive to public decency or something.
Right.
So these are the specific grounds. You can't, you can't say that, I don't like, I don't like tall people, and this film shows a lot of tall people and I'm short and I'm conscious about that. So those are not valid grounds. So you can't make up grounds other than the ones where it has to fit into that. But the grounds themselves are pretty broad, and you can make anything fit into. And so it boils down to the whims of the person who is deciding what is.
Yeah. But the slight difference is that, I mean, if it's on, let's say, TV or cable channels, you can stumble upon the content without intending to watch it, right? And therefore, since it's a mass medium, you basically need some probably laws around it. But these OTT platforms, basically only if you A, log into that platform, and B, then choose a particular show, do you watch it. And it can come with like enough caveats and guidance, right, to say what is in it, and therefore should you watch it or not.
They've also been so that's a route that's been followed in the US for movies as well. They've been self-regulating.
Right.
So if they're putting out content which is not suitable for young children, you rate the movie like that, so you don't accidentally go. And they've done that, I think, for most shows as well, including they've done that in India as well. There are shows like Sacred Games and Patal Lok and Mirzapur, which a lot of really rough language and rough situations, and they've clearly put out disclaimers before before every show that it's graphic and you don't want. And not just children, even like in my house, my mother is not comfortable with too much violence, or she objects more to the violence than anything. She doesn't like to she shouldn't watch such shows. But as far as I can see, they're clearly labeled as such. So I don't know what the need for regulation. It's just power. So it's that. So many years, when I was a kid, I had seen a cartoon, which said what's a dog's idea of heaven? It's a mile full of trees and a belly full of you. So what I found very funny, that time, was that different people's ideas of paradise are different. Right. So for most of us, you want a lush garden and sort of angels singing songs and things like that. Yeah. But for a dog, that doesn't mean anything. All the dog wants is just to pee under a tree. Right. And so if by extending that logic, what is a bureaucrat's idea of heaven is like a mile full of people standing in queue to take his permission, which he can deny without giving any justification. That guy is in paradise. He just wants to deny permission. That's all he wants to do. Yeah.
It's lunch break now, come after 2 hours.
Yes. Oh man, I have to tell you, I got this thing called domicile certificate for my children. Okay. They're required after 12th standard to get admission into engineering colleges anyway. And it is so arbitrary. They keep sending you back for some random thing. Just randomly, they'll tell you there is no electricity bill. I mean, you have to provide evidence of continuous stay for 15 years or 10 years or something like that. And you support it with the electricity bill. So from September 1997 to November 1997, October, there's no bill. And he'll throw you out of the thing. You have to go and
But do you also need to show proof of how your children have actually used electricity and it was not just...
Please don't give them ideas. For all you know, hordes of them are actually listening. And they got this from Tony, and all future generations will have you to curse back.
Yeah. That's why it's not a power bill, no? It has like actual power is there. So what do these regulations mean now? Like,
as of now, there are no regulations. So no one knows how it's going to move. They don't know how much and in what form censorship is going to happen. But they just know that they're empowered. Now the ministry is empowered to censor OTT content. Right. And now one of two things can happen. That is, all edgy content can just be, just go away, because no one wants trouble. Right? So
okay, as in you're saying, people who are making the shows will be wary.
Yeah, they themselves will decide. I mean, they just...
Yeah.
And it'll all
gravitate. Is not made yet, so you'll probably...
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other alternative is someone will bravely test the limits. Someone will make content and fight it out. And,
right.
And
maybe will tweet.
Yeah, man. What a brave guy, actually. I'm so good.
Right.
So, yeah, that's basically it. So, the general message from Simplified is be a little worried, because all your favorite shows are likely to just vanish.
Yeah. This doesn't apply to podcasts though, right?
I hope not. Yeah. The kind of, obscene and sort of evil thoughts that we have been purveying.
Yeah.
We deserve to be banned right first. Absolutely. The first people should be banned should be Simplified if there's any justice in this world. The horribleness.
We are not self-regulating either. So then...
Yeah, we are not even self-regulating.
Hard hand of the law can stop us now.
So just to sum up a little history of censorship. I told you about Socrates. That was the earliest that I could find, the instance of censorship. Then there was a speech by John Milton. of Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained fame,
right,
called Areopagitica. And it's a prose polemical tract, because it's not really a speech. It was supposed to be a speech to the parliament, but no one would let John Milton into the parliament. So he wrote it on a pamphlet and circulated it. It's an impassioned defense of freedom of speech.
okay.
And it was pretty early. It was in the mid 1600s. And it was
the first newsletter.
Yeah, first newsletter.
Substack.
Substack. And it was very influential. So it made up people's minds on the entire subject of whether you can regulate what other people want to, what you think other people would like to or not like to see. And then in
clearly there was no reply feature back then, right? Imagine just one point of view is put across and everything. So such a nice Where were you when Socrates was killed?
Actually, that should be so next time, whenever soon, this will come up and it will be battled out in the battleground of Twitter and whatnot. And at that time, we can definitely make, it'll be a killer argument. Really, where were you, man? Socrates was dead. Just shut up. Now we accept it. You should have stopped Socrates from that. And you don't get to say now. In 1766, Sweden was the first country to introduce a constitutional law where censorship was abolished. They just abolished censorship in 1766. I find that amazing. They guaranteed the freedom of press. Just incredible. And US has had its own struggle. So right now, they are big believers in freedom of speech, but that was not always so. In 1873, the US Congress enacted what is called the Comstock laws. It made it illegal to send any obscene, lewd, or lascivious books through the mail. Okay. So I think they got booted out and came right back and joined the
But the
IAS.
books themselves can be mailed. You just can't mail them.
Yeah, you can't mail them. So actually, that was it was because U.S. Postal Service belonged to the U.S. government, and that was the ground. So they were one sneaky well played. They were trying to play that. They couldn't, because they had a free speech thing, but they couldn't. But it was pretty successful because that mail was the only way you could transmit materials, and they had a prison term and everything. So that worked. And some interesting facts. The first film to be censored in the UK was a film by a guy named Charles Urban. It was a 90-second long film.
90 seconds?
Just 90 seconds. It was censored. It was banned, actually.
It was 90 seconds before or after the censorship?
And in 1898, and you won't guess what was on that film. It was a piece of cheese under a microscope. That was the film. And why was it banned? Because the microscope showed active bacteria on the cheese.
Okay.
And the British cheese-making industry was horrified. They just ran full speed and got it banned.
But all scientists will testify that bacteria is part of culture, no?
Yeah, but back in 1898, bacteria is part of culture. And actually, that is the only culture that some people have. And what else? Of course, the Catholic Church abolished its list of forbidden books on June 14, 1966. So the Catholic Church had a big list of books that it had banned. It just abolished that. So even the Catholic Church, that's what it says. It abolished its list of forbidden books.
That's strictly against the Catholic upbringing that I've had.
No, but they're moving with times, but not out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was always amused that Catholic actually in the dictionary means broad-minded. And I'm
Correct.
like, which angle, man? Like, so there was a point in time where all of these things.
Orthodox. There is something called Orthodox in Christianity, and there is Catholic.
Yeah.
So maybe there is something.
Orthodox is when a right arm bowler bowls like off spin.
Off spin. A whole bunch of those Russian bishops and all bowling right arm Orthodox. And my favorite, two favorite facts about censorship. First is there was this song called Louis Louis in the 50s, which was supposed to be, had a lot of obscene lyrics. And the FBI was, assigned to investigating it. The FBI investigated for 3 months. And they abandoned the investigation because they couldn't make out the words. And my favorite fact about censorship is the Chinese government has censored the word censorship. That is totally meta. How do they even do these things?
So then if someone makes content and then like the authorities are like, no, you can't do it. Then you ask them why, and then they can't say censorship. Like, what do they tell you?
Yeah, man. Actually, it's difficult. How do you say no? I mean, why do you do it? But yeah, you can't say censorship. I'll have to put you into
That's amazing.
Insert. Anyway, that's all from me on this fascinating subject. Jolly good times ahead, I think.
Yeah.
Let's hope that all this is tempered with reason and you don't have a complete clamp down or everything sensible.
Mm-hmm.
And so
stay over the top. Stay over the top.
Yeah, stay over the top. And stay simplified. Stay safe, stay over the top, and stay simplified.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So it's been a great week on the network, as it almost always is. Let me give you a couple of highlights that you should definitely check out. Chiki Sarkar was on This Round's on Me with Gauri Devi Dayal. Great conversation. Think you will really enjoy that. Shlok Ramachandran of our new show, Millennial Athlete, who guested on one of our older shows, Football Should Ball. He's a big football fan in addition to being a professional athlete. So I think it's a really interesting connection. And they had a great conversation about football just generally. Nankari, our new show about Indian food, hosted by Sadaf and Archit, talk about laddus this week and basically, how awesome they are. It's Diwali week, and I think that's an apt conversation for them to have. On the Wire Talks podcast, Siddharth Bhatia has a great conversation with Dylan Mohan Gray about his work on Bad Boy Billionaire, specifically around the Vijay Mallya episode. Definitely check out the conversation if you want to know more about that. And finally, let me recommend the Edges and Sledges Cricket podcast this week. They take a look back at the IPL 2020. They go over the final, Delhi versus Mumbai, and how that played out. And they also create their dream IPL 2020 fantasy team. Do check that out. I think you'll enjoy that as well. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Whether you're an established sports person or a budding one, or simply a sports enthusiast, join us, Tanvi and Shlok.
We are two passionate pro badminton players talking policy, mindset and everything sport.
So tune in to the Millennial Athlete every Monday.
Only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Trust us, it's gonna be lit.